Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live. There's turmoil in Houston, and I am here for all of it. I am ready to break this down. You have a lot of stuff coming out about the Houston Rockets. Westbrook wants out. He doesn't want to play with James Harden. He wants to be the number one player on a mediocre team. That's what he wants his career to be. And apparently the Charlotte Hornets are the team that could fit that bill, which is very fitting and ironically funny. I feel like, man, imagine Russell Westbrook with a bunch of nobodies on the Charlotte Hornets. We're gonna break this all down. You got Daniel House talking about James Harden yelling at him for nothing. You got Austin Rivers, or maybe that's Austin Rivers. I don't know. You heard stuff from Daniel House, Austin Rivers. Apparently, Harden and Westbrook don't want to play with each other, which is funny because at the start of last season, Rockets fans were saying they played together before. They're bros, man. They're gonna love playing together, and their chemistry is going to be top notch. And now 1 year later, they don't even want to play with each other. Man, the Houston Rockets are crumbling before our eyes, and that is going to be the main topic of the stream because as a Blazer fan, you love to see it. So, other than that, we'll talk a little bit of draft, we'll talk a little bit rumors, we'll take questions, you know, the normal thing. Sorry for going live a little bit late. Life is kind of hectic. I ain't even going to get into it. Other than that, I just put out a video talking about 5 overrated trade targets. The number one trade target in that video, spoiler alert, was Aaron Gordon. I saw a lot of stuff today on Twitter about how we should trade for Aaron Gordon, and it's driving me crazy. I know it's driving Eric crazy as well, so we can talk about that a little bit too, because I don't understand what people see in this guy. So that is what's on tap for tonight's show. How's everybody doing? How's your week been so far? What'd you do today? Did anybody get the PS5 today? Because I was trying to buy it today and had zero luck, and I know a lot of other people were the same way. Kind of bummed out about that because I definitely wanted to get it. But yeah, it was mission impossible trying to get one today, especially off Walmart. Walmart was triggering. So yeah, man, it was rough. What's up, Hamza? Destrum is in here. Chris Stevens, Portland Maid, Ben Darling, Mike Posner, Kyle Wilson. If the Hornets traded their number one pick for Westbrook, I would laugh my ass off. Oh my goodness, that'd be hilarious. Yeah, they do have number 3. I saw Kyle Wilson. He asked, are the Hornets able to trade the number 1 pick? They got the number 3 pick, but still, I'd laugh my ass off if that happened.
That's so stupid.
That would be such a Charlotte Hornets thing to do. Just like basically cement them as a lottery team for the next 5 years.
Dude, a few minutes before we went on, I saw CJ post. Let me start this over. So Nick Wright this morning suggested that the Blazers trade CJ McCollum and Zach Collins for Russell Westbrook, and hell no.
Yeah.
But do not do that, please. I would rather have Mario Hezonja on this team than Russell Westbrook, and I'm not joking. I do not want Westbrook on this team.
I think a lot of Blazer fans agree with you on that one.
But yeah, Nurk agreed with him too. So CJ tweeted a bunch of smiley faces or like laughing emojis, and then Nurk followed it up with the cry face emojis. And so I've tweeted at Nurk saying, Nurk, don't let the Blazers trade CJ for Westbrook. And now I have like a million Westbrook stands. They're the freaking worst, dude. They're the absolute worst, talking about how like don't you dare slander my boy, blah, blah, blah. Just about how much better like Westbrook is than CJ and all that kind of stuff. When like we all know that he's a horrible fit. You can see over the last 2 days he has absolutely no trade value unless it's a stupid team like Charlotte they're just going to trade for him for no reason when they have no chance of competing with Westbrook even if they trade for him. And like teams aren't going to give up much for him. I doubt that the Hornets are even putting the number 3 pick in play if they're trying to get him. And they shouldn't have to. His value is like expiring contracts at this point, it's really pathetic that they're... So I made the comment that the Houston situation turned out to be a failure, and now I have all these people telling me that it wasn't a failure because they made the second round and all this stuff. Like, look at Russell Westbrook's stats in Houston. How can you say that's a failure? So I'm like, reading must be hard for you guys because a year later, it's blown up, and the Rockets are screwed. They're absolutely screwed. They have no future picks. They traded away Chris Paul, who's better than Russell Westbrook this year, and who actually led a team to the playoffs almost by himself. Um, it's just crazy to me that they think that they love Westbrook so much that they're not willing to see how badly he is like tanked his value in the last year.
Yeah. I was even planning on going in on Westbrook stands because the IQ just declines the longer you think about them. Because I've seen some of those replies, and it gives me a little bit of a headache because it makes me facepalm, and I give myself a concussion facepalming so hard at that stuff. So, Westbrook says he feels personally attacked right now. R. Westbrook, you're R. Westbrook's. Real Westbrook is possibly on his way to Charlotte, which would be funny as hell, man. All these fans that are so rabid for Russell Westbrook might get stuck watching Charlotte Hornets games. That I hope that happens. That's the ultimate punishment, man, because I don't know how you could enjoy a Charlotte Hornets game at this point. That team is a mess. Tori and Eric, I really appreciate how you address Russ as Westbrook without batting an eye. I love it. Man, part of it that's helped is, our Westbrook has got me comfortable saying Westbrook.
He's mad right now, though.
Hey, man, you're a mod, so, everybody would still know it's you, most likely, if you changed your name. So if you don't like it, man, feel free to change it, and everybody will still know, because you're one of the two people with a blue name in here. I wouldn't. I know him as Westbrook, but also it's I don't know. It's like if you have two friends with different names, you don't think of them as the same. If that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah.
Yep. So, yeah. Now they're attacking the podcast and the show.
Who are?
The Westbrook stands.
Are they?
Yeah.
Let me see. Bring it on.
Someone said, no wonder his podcast is getting no traction, LOL. And then someone else says, spelling must give you a headache because you keep spelling it Westbrook. I'm like, no, I'm doing it on purpose. So
what podcast? We don't have a podcast, hell? We don't call it a podcast.
I just responded by saying, have fun watching Westbrook put up triple-doubles on the Charlotte Hornets while never making it past the first round the rest of his career.
Oh, dude, I don't understand them, man. They need to bro, nothing will humble these guys, man. Westbrook, could end up averaging 5 points per game in Charlotte 3 years from now because he loses all his athleticism and can't shoot. And they'll still be hardcore on that bandwagon. I mean, they're dedicated to standing for Russ. It's actually quite commendable. Not in a positive way, but it's commendable as how hard they stand this man. It's bad.
Well, we dealt with it a lot with the Melo stands this year.
Yeah, but they didn't compare, man. They didn't compare, Imagine if we got Westbrook dealing with him. Bro, if we ended up with Westbrook and Dame, you'd know how many people we'd have to listen to oh, Dame shouldn't have taken that final shot. Russ should have had that final shot. Russ is better than Dame. All year, it would be torture, bro. No, man. If O'Shea traded for Westbrook, I would, I couldn't handle that, man. I couldn't handle that, especially if they kept, Melo at the same time and you had to deal with both those player fan bases. That would be rough. That would suck.
Yeah. At least I can confidently say that Russell Westbrook will not be a Portland Trailblazer, especially not this season. I'm 100% sure we would not make that trade as long as Dame is on this team and we have Nurk and stuff. Those guys hate Westbrook, so.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the tweet about the podcast, but anyway, you got me down this rabbit hole. I don't want to go down. I want to jump out of this rabbit hole, actually. So, as far as Westbrook trades go, the other team that was linked to it was Chicago, which is just another mediocre, terrible team. They could potentially be the playoff team if they got Westbrook. If they kept Wendell Carter, Larry Market, and Zach LaVine Westbrook, that's not bad, and that's actually decent pieces to surround Westbrook with. But that team is never getting out of the first round. You know what I mean? And that team is going to end up in what a lot of people call purgatory, where they're not bad enough to get a high enough draft pick and they're not good enough to win in the first round. So they're just going to be a first round exit year after year after year, which is very fitting for Russell Westbrook. That's kind of who he is as the leader of a team. He's a guy who can't get out of the first round. The only time he's been out of the first round since Kevin Durant left him was when he missed 4 out of 7 games in the Houston Rockets OKC Thunder series this past season and was the number 2 guy, right? So he can't lead a team out of the first round. So, I mean, he's going to end up in a situation where he's never going to be able to accomplish anything. Like, he's not willing to be the number 2, and he's not good enough as a number 1 to make anything happen. So, this guy's career is on the way down, right? He's going to decline because he's losing, athleticism is the first thing to go, and his game is so athleticism-based. He's going to decline. He can't shoot. Like, he's not even, like, I don't even think he's that great of a ball handler. He's just super quick. You know what I mean? He's just athleticism based. Once he loses that, man, he's going to be mediocre. Like, he might not be starting caliber. And that could happen in the next, 3 years or so. Russell Westbrook fans, if they're watching this, are probably losing their minds that I said that. But I wouldn't be surprised. You see guys fall off fast when they base their games off athleticism. And Westbrook is how old now? Isn't he 31, 32? He's 32 years old right now. He turns... Oh, this is his birthday. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Westbrook. 3 years from now, he'll be 35, bro. I don't expect him to be a starting caliber guard. So, yeah, it's funny how things have changed in the past 3 years in regards to, how Westbrook is looked at and valued.
And the thing is, they beat the team that traded Westbrook away, and they almost took him to 7. With a team that traded away Chris Paul and multiple first-round picks just to get Westbrook on their team. Couldn't have happened to a better.
Yeah, Westbrook couldn't make it out of the first round with Paul George, so they trade Westbrook for Chris Paul, who supposedly looked at as less valuable, and they trade Paul George for picks and young pieces, and then Westbrook's new team goes down to the wire in 7 games against the Thunder. Yeah, that's just proof right there. So,
And now Presti's going to get probably at least 1, probably 2 first-round picks for Chris Paul this summer and add to his collection even more picks. So.
Presti's lucky. I don't think Presti is elite, man. He's just walked into, good situations.
It did come out over the last few days that when Paul George agreed to re-sign, they promised him that if he at any point wanted to leave, that they would try to accommodate that. And he got lucky that the Clippers had 6 first-round picks to give him.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Because it was basically the Clippers gave up a ton of extra value for Paul George because it helped him land Kawhi. That's not Presti being elite. That's just Presti getting lucky. Because if Kawhi just decided to go to the Lakers, bro, he ain't getting anywhere near close to that return back for Paul George, because that return was the best trade package return for a star that I've ever seen.
Because this is how it happened, I guarantee. So Paul George was like, "Hey guys, I know we talked about this last summer. I really want to play with Kawhi. He's going to sign with the Clippers. Could you possibly see if you can work out a trade with them?" So then the Clippers call and are like, "Hey, I know it's probably a long shot, but is there any way you trade Paul George?" And Presti was probably like, "Oh man, it would take a lot to trade Paul George, playing it all slide." And then they're like, "Dude, we'll give you whatever you want, 5 first-round picks." And then they're like, "Oh man, I really don't want to trade Paul George, but if you're telling me he's going to be unhappy if I don't do this, then I guess we'll do it. And maybe can you throw in Shai too?" Or
yeah, you get Shai, Danilo. Yeah. So,
and then they're all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, we got all this stuff for him." And then they're like, "Now we can trade Westbrook too."
Yeah, I mean, bro, people don't want to play with Westbrook. I don't think people want to play with Westbrook. Just the style of play that Westbrook plays with, I feel like other star level players don't want to play with that type of guy. I wouldn't, because he's a guy that dominates the ball and shoots a ton of shots that he's not good at. You know what I mean? And it's hard to coexist next to him if you're an equal or better player. It's hard to.
He'd need to play on a team with 4 other Middletons or something, like stars that aren't really stars but don't need the ball to be effective and are good shooters. There are situations where you could probably still make him a good enough player to win with, but it's going to be really hard to find a team. And the teams that want him, the Bulls, the Hornets, those aren't the type of teams that are going to help him. Those are and the fact that like he said that he wants to go to a team and put up stats like he did in OKC, like so you don't want to win, you just want to go to a team where you can lead them and get triple doubles, dude. That's such a pathetic stance to have as a basketball
I know,
player.
especially after the Rockets tried to build their team to accommodate Westbrook's deficiencies. Because
Right.
that's exactly what they did. He needed a bunch of floor spacing. You know what I mean? Like, they tried to accommodate Westbrook's deficiencies, and now Westbrook wants out because he doesn't want to win. He wants to put up stats. That is the most comical thing. Like, you can't respect a star for that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't respect stars for just, like, trying to sell out to win and, like, making super teams, right?
Right.
I also don't respect
least they
stars
wanna
that
win.
like I like respect what Dame does. He wants to win, but he like wants to earn it where he's been. If Giannis stays in Milwaukee and wants to win there, I respect that. I think that's the best thing for the league. I think that's what I like to see as a fan. I don't like stars that sell out to win or don't care about winning at all. That they'd rather just put up stats, bro. And that no star level player wants to play with another star who cares more about stats than winning, right? And I think it's telling that Westbrook's boy, James Harden, doesn't want to play with him after playing with him for one season. And he doesn't want to play with him now. I think that's telling. Paul George, I think, probably wanted out after last season. Like, people don't want to play with Westbrook, man. He's a stat chaser and nothing more. He's the point guard version of Hassan Whiteside in terms of he just cares about, stats. He probably cares more about stats than Hassan Whiteside does. I probably shouldn't be that harsh on Hassan, but like, I just don't respect that, man. So I hope that he gets traded to Charlotte and nobody pays him any attention. He just, goes downhill. He had a nice career and he's set for life. Congrats. And he can, retire 5 years from now and that'll be that. Maybe he can average another triple-double for a season and that'll make him happy. I don't know. Like, it's just funny how this whole situation has gone down because everybody was like, when the trade happened, you heard so many people, oh, they got Westbrook now? Oh, man, Houston, they're going to be so good. And I'm literally sitting there saying, like, Westbrook is not a good fit next to Harden. He's a worse fit than Chris Paul. He might be a little bit better in terms of, like, natural talent than Chris Paul, but he's a worse fit, and the worse fit is going to cause more problems than Chris Paul did. Like, I would rather have Chris Paul next to James Harden than Russell Westbrook because fit. And fit is underrated, bro. Like, people don't take into account fit enough. And I was saying that, like, he's not a good fit. This isn't going to work out. They're not going to be any better than they were before, and I don't see this going well. They weren't any better. They barely made it to the second round, beating an OKC team that traded away its 2 stars the previous season. And they, like, barely won in the final minute of Game 7 against that team. And then they get wiped in the second round. And now it's falling apart. Daryl Morey's gone. D'Antoni's gone. Like, Westbrook wants out. Harden has a lot of questions about their long-term future. The role players aren't happy. Like, it has just completely collapsed. And that's what I'm saying in regards to, like, you can't just chase stars without taking into account how players fit. You can't just chase big names without, like, thinking about the personalities you're bringing in and how they fit in terms of the fit in the locker room and the fit on the court as well. Because people just want big names. A lot of Blazer fans just want to trade CJ for the biggest name possible and just think that's the right move, but they're not taking into account extra things, and those extra things have led to Houston not being any better, and now it's completely blown up in their face.
But bro, Olshey just needs to take a risk. That's all that matters, right?
You got to take the right
He
risk.
just doesn't take risks.
Mm-hmm.
So trade CJ for Westbrook because it's a risk that he has to take a risk, right?
Yeah, like,
who
bro,
cares if it works or not? Just make a risk.
if you're at a casino and there's some casino game, hypothetical, this is just a hypothetical. If there's some casino game where you have a 10% chance of winning, you're not going to put down $100 bet if winning the 1 out of 10 odds, if winning, you only get $100 back. Right? Like, you're not going to put down $100 and risk $100 to only win $100 if the odds are 1 out of 10 that you win. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. It has to be a calculated risk. So many people don't take into account the right factors in terms of risk assessment of certain moves when it comes to trying to construct this roster and have this roster take the next step. there's a lot of risk assessment that has to be done by a GM when you're thinking about reshuffling the chairs on the deck, right? Like, and that's why I'm not willing to trade CJ for a Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Because neither of them are as talented as CJ McCollum. Neither of them are good defenders. Dinwiddie's not a good shooter. Karis LeVert shot decent last year, but he's injury prone, and the years prior wasn't a good shooter. You know what I mean? Like, that type of moves, just like, it's a risk that doesn't give you the right reward for the risk. It's risk versus reward. And I'm not willing to take a high risk for a mediocre reward, man. Like, I'm willing to, trade CJ for Middleton because I am confident the reward will be better. And I don't think that's much of a risk because Middleton is proven and we've seen what he can do and seen how he would 100% be a good fit. But, like, there's people that want to trade him for, like, a Ben Simmons, who literally is allergic to the three-point line. People want to trade CJ for Aaron Gordon, even, which is just absolutely ridiculous. It just doesn't make sense, man. And it's like...
we get Terrence Ross, too.
Terrence Ross... Dude, it's just like... I don't know, man. I'm just kind of rambling. I'm just tired of, like... I'm just tired of a lot of the things Blazer fans want to do that are just completely misguided, and they'll point to a Daryl Morey like, oh, look what he's doing. He went out and got Russell Westbrook.
So did you hear when stuff started to hit the fan in Houston?
What?
So I guess after a home loss to Portland earlier in the season, Russell Westbrook demanded that Harden be more accountable on the court for some of his play, and Harden didn't like that too much, and it's caused friction in the locker room with the team ever since. So Westbrook, I don't get this, because to me
Westbrook of all people,
that seems like, okay, maybe this guy really wants to win and he's trying to get his team to, like, be more focused and do all that stuff. But then he goes and says the stuff yesterday where, like, he just wants to go and lead his own team again. like that doesn't sound like a guy who wants to win that much. It sounds like a pretty selfish guy who only cares about stats.
And that's where people underrate what we have here in Portland. Like, I want to win a championship, so I want to make a move at some point, and I would be willing to trade CJ for the right piece. But at the same time, you have two guys that want to be here, two guys that can coexist on and off the court, two guys that are solid in the locker room, two guys that people want to play with. Like, that's underrated, man. I feel like some Blazer fans take that for granted. And watching what's going down in Houston, it's just like all these problems that I'm hearing about, it's like we don't have those problems and we don't have to worry about having those problems. But the thing is like, everybody, like, that's how it's been, so people take it for granted just because it's like that's just how it's been for us. Like, you gotta look at other teams and some of the turmoil that happens with other franchises, and it's like, we may not have the most talented roster, and we may need to still upgrade the roster to contend, but at least we're in a situation where we're not dysfunctional. We're a very functional, like, locker room, and in terms of the personalities we have on this team.
And our future is still intact. And then I don't know if you saw the Victor Oladipo stuff today.
What about it?
But,
yeah, I saw that too.
So apparently, at least three times during the season, it was the Knicks, the Heat, and one other team. Apparently, Victor Oladipo told them, like, after the game, to take me with you. Like, he didn't want to play for the Pacers anymore.
Yeah, and he said that in front of his teammates. Bro, I don't want that on my team.
The Knicks?
I don't want...
You freaking told the Knicks you'd rather play for them than a team that had a legit chance if you were healthy and playing better this year? Like, that's stupid.
Bro, but a lot of people want to trade CJ for Victor Oladipo, who can't stay healthy, and is, like, saying that stuff after games. No, thank you, bro. Like, no, thanks.
You
I don't
never
want that.
have to worry about, like, Dame and CJ, those guys would never do that. Nurk would never do that on this team. Like, they love this team. They're gonna put their heart on the line for this city and this team, and they wouldn't do crap like that. And that's why they're easy guys to root for. And I do respect Olshey for making sure he has good character guys and not putting up with that crap.
And that's another thing with, like, the only guy I would swap CJ McCollum straight up for, who might have, like, a small chance of happening, is Chris Middleton. He's a good guy and he would, like, fit into the locker room. You know what I mean? Other than that, like, Oladipo? No, I don't want a guy who does that type of stuff on this team. And, like, he's injured and he sucked last year when he played.
Right.
Like, that's a
It's not
downgrade.
Like he was dominating and like his teammates sucked, and he was like, if he was Russell Westbrook in what year was that, 2016 or whatever, or 2017, I guess it was, when the first year without KD. If he was like that, if Westbrook was like, dude, like, guys, I gave it my all this year. I'm going to go to a different team or whatever. Like, I want a shot of winning in my career and demanded a trade or something. That might have been the right time to do that. But, like, to do that now after you got traded to Houston, and then in Victor Oladipo's case where, like I said, they played Miami in the first round. That was a 4-5 matchup. There's no reason why, if they played better, they couldn't have gone on a similar run to Miami. I mean, I know Sabonis was out, so that hurt. But if Sabonis would have been there, that was a good team. They were just as good as Miami. They could have gone on a run in the East. The East was wide open this year. So, it's just it's mind-boggling to me that it was the same way with KD. Like, KD loses a 3-1 lead, and it's mostly his fault because he can't lead his team to the finals. And in that situation, up 3-1, and then he like blames the team and stuff, and doesn't take any accountability for himself. I don't know. Then he takes the easy way out.
Yeah. I don't get it, man. Like, people take for granted just the culture that we've built, you know. So, like, and it's not something where it's like, oh, we have to preserve this culture over winning. No, like, I'm willing to maybe take a risk on like a guy who has questionable character. Like, if there was a guy that we knew was better than CJ, that was a better fit and a better player doing the stuff Oladipo does, like, I would still have to consider it, because it's like, okay, you get a guy who's like doing that type of stuff, but he is a better player, so maybe you sacrifice a little bit of the culture, a little bit of the locker room for like an upgrade, a legitimate upgrade at the spot, and you know it's going to be an upgrade. Like, yeah, you have to consider that. But like, all the CJ for whatever trades, always... all the trade ideas I see with CJ McCollum is the best player in the trade. CJ McCollum for Dinwiddie and LeVert. CJ McCollum's the best player. CJ McCollum and Ariza for Tobias Harris and Josh Richardson. CJ McCollum's the best player in that trade. CJ McCollum for Aaron Gordon, Terrence Ross, and a pick. CJ McCollum's the best player in that trade. Like, CJ McCollum for Ben Simmons, yeah, like, Ben Simmons is probably a little bit better than CJ McCollum, but he's offensively a far, far, far worse fit. Defensively, he's better. So, like, okay, that's a little bit more legit of a debate. Like, CJ McCollum isn't necessarily the best player in that trade. And CJ McCollum for Middleton, I wouldn't say CJ is the best, but those are the only two trades that I can think of that I've seen where CJ McCollum isn't necessarily the best player in that trade. Like, we need more top-end talent. And this is what I've always said. We need more top-end talent. All these people want to trade CJ for a downgrade. And it's like, it's always like a 1-for-2. We don't need a 1-for-2 trade because we're going to be stacked in terms of depth next year. We already have 7 of our 9 rotation spots filled. We have our starting lineup. We have Dame, CJ, Ariza, Collins, Nurkic. We have 2 guys already off the bench, Trent and Hood. You know, hopefully he's healthy early in the season. If not, Nas, I think, could step up and play some minutes there and be fine, right? So we have our backup perimeter guys. All we need is a backup power forward and a backup center, right? And we have we can use 2 of a full mid-level exception, a biannual exception, and a $7 million traded player exception. So we should be able to fill those 2 spots, right? If we resign Whiteside as our backup center, then we can use the mid-level exception. We can, potentially use the mid-level exception, maybe not all of it, but most of it, on like a backup 4, a Harkless type, maybe for like $5-6 million. And that's a deep enough team, and we have a full set rotation. We don't need to do a 1-for-2 trade where we get like Dinwiddie and LeVert, because then you have what? You have Dame, Trent, Ariza, and then off the bench on the perimeter, you have Dinwiddie, LeVert, and Hood, 1-3. None of those guys can play the 4. You don't have enough minutes for all 6 of those guys at the positions 1-3. So, like, that's the thing is, like, I don't understand 1-for-2 trades that downgrade talent, that create a logjam where there's not enough minutes for everybody, because, like, if our depth sucked, then I'd understand a little bit more, like, okay, we're deeper. But, like, our depth should be good next year without trading CJ, so we don't need to trade CJ for, like, multiple players that we need to slot into our rotation.
Yep, absolutely. And Westbrook's talking about the trade 503 posted with Schroeder and Gallo. That wasn't even a valid trade, so I don't know why it's even worth mentioning. But
we don't need Schroeder, man.
Kyle Wilson, so he says he wants a trade like Drew Holiday and Brandon Ingram for CJ and Ariza, but New Orleans would never do that, so it's not even worth discussing because like you're not going to get Brandon Ingram for CJ, you're not going to get like LeBron for CJ or something, like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean obviously straight up
Ingram's a free agent too. So.
Yeah, straight up, obviously if you could trade CJ for Ingram, yeah, you'd do it, but for the same reasons we would do it are the same reasons why the Pelicans wouldn't do it. That's the thing. Is like it's hard to find like a straight up swap with CJ and somebody. Like it has to make sense for both teams for different reasons. The reasoning why like a Middleton trade could work is like Milwaukee has a ton of good defenders to offset CJ's poor defense. CJ could like basically be the point guard, but not have to deal with all the playmaking and half-court initiation responsibility because you have Giannis as like kind of a point forward there, so CJ could play point guard, defend the point guard, but not have to like basically run point guard full-time offensively. And they kind of need a go-to scorer down the line other than Giannis, and like Middleton is more efficient and scores a little higher rate, but a lot of it is like set up for him, and he's not quite the level of shot creator that CJ is. So like maybe they would consider a CJ and a pick trade for a Middleton, whereas us, with Dame being a poor defender, we kind of need an upgrade defensively at the starting two. We could use some size there, and Middleton is maybe a little better playing off the ball than CJ is, so we'd maybe be a better fit offensively next to Dame. So like that's why like a swap like that could work. It has to have like different reasons for each team, but like CJ for Ingram, man, like all the reasons why we'd want Ingram, bigger player, younger, better defender, more versatile in terms of the position he can play. Those are all reasons why the Pelicans wouldn't trade him for CJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else you want to touch on in this? Any other rumors? What else you got?
I go to rumors that the Aaron Gordon thing is it's triggering. It's every day, and it's someone new every day, except for Danny Meringue. He's always talking this stupid stuff.
Yeah. Here. Let me just touch on it real quick because I tweeted this out, but let me just say this. I'm gonna read it off my Twitter. I don't even care if I can get to my Twitter. So this is why I tweeted. It's funny how a lot of the people who hated on Aminu's three-point shooting want Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon is a career 32% three-point shooter, shot 31% from three last year. He's a worse shooter than Al-Farouq Aminu. Yet a lot of these people that said, our offense can't function at all because Aminu can't shoot at all, want Aaron Gordon, who's a worse three-point shooter. It doesn't make any sense. It's funny how a lot of the people who complained about our lack of big wing defenders want Aaron Gordon. Now, their justification is Aaron Gordon's a good big wing defender. They overrate the hell out of Aaron Gordon defensively. Aaron Gordon is not a good defender. He's mediocre at best, right? We need good defensive forwards, not mediocre ones. But a lot of people that complained about us not having good defensive forwards want a mediocre defender in Aaron Gordon. Doesn't make sense. And it's funny how a lot of these people who said, Hazonia, he's been stuck in bad systems. He was a high draft pick. Just wait. Once he's in Portland's system, which is a better system than Orlando and New York, he's going to be so much better. And then a couple months into the season, what were they saying? Hazonia sucks. He's terrible. He's not good. Olshey, why in the world did you get him? But now they're saying, just wait, man. If you put Aaron Gordon in Portland's system, he's going to be a lot better because he was a high draft pick and he's been stuck in Orlando's system. We heard the same thing about Hazonia, who was stuck in Orlando and wasn't any better here, right? And now they're saying the same things with Aaron Gordon. And I guarantee you, if we went out and traded for Aaron Gordon, which they want, then like 3 months into the season, they would be saying, why in the world did we trade for Aaron Gordon? He's not good. Olshey, what are you doing?
Yep. And yeah, they say, because I tried to ask Danny, so he started it, for those that don't know, for some reason the other day, Tori and I were magically unblocked by Danny Meringue.
I don't know how that happened, bro. What the hell?
I don't know how it happened. I was
probably a mistake on his end.
I was going to play a fun game of how fast could I get reblocked by him, but then I decided not to. And so I tried to ask him a legit question because he responded. It wasn't necessarily directly to me, but someone responded to me, and then he responded to them, and then we actually had a little back and forth for a second. So I asked him, because he specifically said, like, Aaron Gordon is great at all these things that Portland needs in their offense or whatever. So I asked him with Stott's schemes, do you think Gordon would be a good fit for Stott's schemes? Or do you think, he would change his schemes to fit Aaron Gordon? Or would Aaron Gordon just magically work like that? So he stopped responding and he didn't respond anymore. But
that's why I don't conversate with him, because you're never going to get a good conversation. And it's like, why even give? He doesn't deserve to have a conversation with us, man. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't give us the light of day. Why should we give him the light of day? He's no better than us at all at anything. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a guy who was just somebody posted on a forum who Blazers Edge offered to let him write for them, and then his writing for Blazers Edge landed him a TV show, and then that TV show became a post-game show. You know what I mean? Like, bro, if I wasn't as outspoken and I tried to do all that, bro, I think I'm talented enough to be able to do that, because I can talk on camera. I can write. I think I'm a solid writer. You know what I mean? Like, it's just some random guy that just ended up getting put up into the spot he's in. Like, he's still just some random guy to me. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm at the point where it's like, I'm just kind of done, like, giving the media the light of day. You know what I mean? I'll clown them and I'll be like the tweet I posted earlier about, I don't understand why all these people want Aaron Gordon when, all this stuff happened. Like, stuff like that I'll do, but like, I don't even, like, it's almost like the more I talk about him, the more I feel like I'm putting him up on a pedestal, because, like, I'm giving him so much attention. He doesn't give me none, and he doesn't deserve any attention, because he was just nobody that got put in a decent spot. We're nobodies with YouTube channels, you know what I mean? Like, we're on the same plane. I'm just kind of over that, if that makes sense. But it is very triggering, because a lot of people listen to him at the same time, so that's like, the conversation is like, people listen to this stuff and soak it up, and then you have people trying to tell you Aaron Gordon's like an all-NBA defensive second team type of guy when he's a mediocre defender.
Yep. And then I saw Trevin that he quote tweeted you a few times. I didn't really get into that either, but Trevin, I agree with Trevin. I'd rather have Zach Collins than Aaron Gordon. And I'd rather have Ariza than Aaron Gordon. I've said that in some of my trade talk videos. But the thing is, the Blazers do not push the tempo. So him saying that Aaron Gordon is great pushing the ball and getting into transition, that's not something this team does. We don't pass well. We don't move off ball, which is something Gordon would have to do. So what would happen was he would be relegated to being a spot-up three-point shooter, standing in the corners and doing that. And anyone who says differently has not watched this team for the last 8 years under Stotts, because that's all we require our forwards to do, is stand in the corners and shoot threes. There's very little movement. There's very little passing. We're last in assists almost every year. Where transition defense or offense is pretty much non-existent until we get down big in games, and then of course we have to push the tempo because we have to play at a faster pace. But that's not like fast break points. That's just like pushing the tempo a little faster. But we, for the most part, slow it down on offense. And Aaron Gordon would not fit in that offense. He's not a good spot-up shooter. He's terrible shooting from the corners, which is indicative of whether you're a good three-point shooter or not. And it's just a horrible fit. And then, like you said, those same people will then be like, oh, why did Olshey trade for Aaron Gordon? He sucks. Like, he should have known that he wasn't very good. And never blame Stotts for not being able to, get those guys.
And they'll blame Olshey for a trade that they wanted to do.
If we had Aaron Gordon, we would need a more up-tempo offense that featured a ton of movement and getting him going to the rim with passing to him going to the rim. And that's not going to happen. Stotts isn't going to just change his whole offense this offseason.
Yeah, we didn't do that with Al-Farouq Aminu or Maurice Harkless. Why would we do that with Aaron Gordon? You know what I mean? They're all big, decently athletic forwards that, could score or attack in the rim off the move, receiving a pass. But we just stuck Harkless and Aminu in the corner. Shoot, we stuck Evan Turner in the corner for a long portion of his tenure here. We just sat Evan Turner in the corner, who's a horrible three-point shooter, and his only value is like, okay, if the ball's in his hands, he can maybe create a little bit. That's like his only value. So it's like, why wouldn't that happen with Aaron Gordon? You know what I mean? People are kidding themselves, and they're, I don't know. It's like they're not paying attention to what this team has done the past few years, man. It's like, I just don't understand. This fan. How do I word this? Like, a big portion of this fan base at this point in time just has me completely like mind boggled as to what they think they've been watching for the past few seasons with the way this team plays. You know what I mean? And like the type of players they want, bro. It's so like back and forth. It's so like, oh, we need guys that can shoot. We get guys that can shoot. Oh, we need big wing defenders. Okay, well, we have a big wing defender in Ariza. And then they want Aaron Gordon they want to trade Ariza for Aaron Gordon.
And then
they're saying somehow our system is going to unlock Aaron Gordon's potential, which is the same narrative they were saying about Nick Stauskas and Mario Hezonja. Like, what are these people seeing? I don't understand. It's almost like they don't know how to think basketball for themselves, so they just regurgitate what they're fed to by media hosts that don't truly know the game all that well, you know, and they just repeat it. And it has me mind boggled, man. It's like, I heard so much talk like 5 years ago about how smart the Blazers fan base is. And like, there's some really smart people in this fan base. So this isn't, you know, like people that watch our channel, I feel like out of all the people that cover the team, all the media, maybe we're count as media, I don't know, whatever. Out of all the like fan bases of people that cover the team, I feel like ours is the smartest, but that's because like, I feel like me and you have put in the work to truly learn the game of basketball and to understand the game of basketball and to break things down on a deeper level, and people watch us for that. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just so confusing at this point in time, and it's just going to be interesting to see how this offseason goes and see the reaction to it from a big portion of the fan base that just regurgitates stuff they hear from guys that just are on air because they talk well, not because they actually know basketball all that well, if that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see.
So real quick before I make my point to that, TJ Leaf is not a free agent. You bring him up all the time.
Why would we want TJ Leaf?
He thinks that's like the ultimate like Olshey signing because he's like a white big man who was drafted a few years ago, you know. But TJ Leaf is not a free agent, so you don't have to worry about that. But you keep mentioning him every time you talk about it. But anyways,
did they not decline his option? Did they pick up his option?
Yeah, according to everything I'm looking at, he has because he was the 2017 draft with Zach and stuff. So
I figure they might not pick up his option because of how bad he's been.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because that does ruin some of their flexibility when you do that. So I guess they just kept him to trade him. But yeah. Didn't really work out. But, yeah, they did pick up his option. But anyways, so back to Aaron Gordon. See, the people who like Aaron Gordon are the people who are fascinated with the idea of Aaron Gordon. Because in reality, he should be all-star level. He has insane athleticism. He has handles. He should be able to shoot better. He should be more efficient. He should be a lockdown defender with that athleticism. He should be a dominant, like, 10-plus a game rebounder. He's none of those things. None of them. He's not a good defender. He's not a good rebounder. He can handle the ball a little bit, yeah, and that's the only reason why people can still say that he might be good in a different offense or something. Mm-hmm. But shooting, he's terrible. And to me, if you have that much talent and you are not good at any of those things, that tells me that you do not put in the work behind the scenes to get it done, like Andrew Wiggins, and you do not do what it takes to become a good basketball player, because there is no freaking excuse why a guy like that cannot be an all-star when you see a guy like Dame who doesn't have anywhere near the capability of him, is just like miles ahead of him because he puts in the time and work and just mentally more prepared for the game of basketball. And I don't think you can change that in a guy very easily. Yes, you could come and make him a good role player probably if you got traded him, but I wouldn't take that risk for a guy like that.
And here's the thing. If people fall in love with the idea of him, if he was what people think he is, he wouldn't be on the trade market.
Right.
Like, he's on the trade market, though. We've heard multiple rumors about him. Aaron Gordon is on the trade market. That shows you that he is not what people think of him. People fall in love with the idea of him. What he actually is is a player who doesn't really do anything well. And that's why he's on the trade market. So some team is probably going to like trade for him and overpay for him, falling in love with the idea of what he could be. And that's going to be a mistake. Thankfully, it sounds like it's not going to be us, because I saw a report about how there's like really no talks between Portland and Orlando on Aaron Gordon, which thankfully we have a GM who I don't think is dumb enough to get suckered into that. You know what I mean? Like, if he goes out and falls in love with the idea of a player and misses on them, it's normally like a minimum level signing, which ends up driving you crazy. But normally it's like, okay, we signed Nick Stauskas and we signed Mario Hezonja, right? It's not like we're trading CJ McCollum for the idea of Aaron Gordon and then we're screwed for the rest of Dame's prime. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, is like, everybody wants to hate on Olshey, but the fact that he hasn't like completely messed this up when a lot of other GMs would, I feel like you got to give him a little bit of credit for that, because Daryl Morey, we probably would have traded for Jimmy Butler, then Jimmy Butler would be gone, and we'd probably be in rebuild right now if we had like a Daryl Morey, right? If we had like some other GMs, we would have traded CJ McCollum for Aaron Gordon by now. Like, that's the thing.
The only thing I'd say about Jimmy Butler is I think like he's a good enough player and Dame's a good, I think they would have fallen in love with each other play wise, and
potentially
that would have worked out. But
potentially,
but yeah, I mean, we're talking about if Jimmy Butler's situation didn't happen, if they didn't have that finals run in the playoffs this year, like you could still say that Jimmy Butler's played on like several different teams right now, and he's a great player, but it hasn't like manifested into playoff success for any team that he's been on. But luckily for him, he showed up this year in the playoffs. But I think they could have made that work. But yeah, overall, I agree with your point.
Yeah. What else? What else do you have rumor wise? You got your notes there,
let's see. Yeah. So Destin's talking about like, then why do people talk about trading CJ? That's different. That's fans talking about it, not rumors that the Blazers are actually shopping CJ, like we heard today with the Magic trying to use Aaron Gordon to move up in the draft and them not finding many takers to do that. I heard the Dallas Mavericks are trying to get one of either Victor Oladipo, Spencer Dinwiddie, or Zach LaVine.
Spencer Dinwiddie doesn't make sense there. He can't shoot, can't defend. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is extremely overrated, to be honest.
I agree with you on those. Like the Blazers, Mavericks, I don't think those teams make sense. Like Clippers wouldn't make sense. But if he was if he was a point guard and you kind of like what you're talking about with Russell Westbrook, like if you surrounded him with shooters, and like I think it would be okay.
Yeah, there's just major question marks with all those guys. I wouldn't be steadfast. Like Spencer Dinwiddie is just, I don't know. He's just not good defensively and a very questionable shooter who kind of needs the ball in his hands. I don't think that's a good fit next to Luka, to be honest. Oladipo, his injury questions are a major concern. And then his play when he's been healthy the past year or so hasn't been good whatsoever. He might be completely washed at this point and might not be worth really giving anything up for. And then like he's a questionable shooter at this point too, and that's probably not the best fit next to Luka. And then you have Zach LaVine, who's a better shooter, but he's one of those guys that's like putting up big scoring numbers on a bad team and doesn't really play defense. There's questions about how conducive Zach LaVine's game is to helping his team win. You know, is he just a guy who puts up good stats on bad teams, or is he a guy that, if he's the number 2 option, can like legitimately help you win in the playoffs? Like, so that's the thing. It's like Zach LaVine is the most intriguing option for them, but he's also going to take the most, and there's still some question marks there. So
yeah, they don't have, because they owe 2 future picks to the Knicks in the Porzingis trade. Mm-hmm. They can't trade future first this summer, or this offseason. I keep saying summer. But so I don't see them having the assets, because they don't have a lot of young players either, other than Luka, who they, of course, wouldn't trade. So I don't see the Bulls being interested in a package for LaVine that featured no first-round picks. So I agree with you that he's probably the best of those 3 for them, but I don't see a path of them getting him.
Yeah, I will say this. If they end up on the verge of making a trade and they're trading Maxi Kleber, however you say his last name, to a bad team, I would love to have Kleber. Is it Kleber or Kleber? I always forget. I would love to have him
Well,
as our backup
it's
center, though.
spelled Kleber, but
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it's
know if that's how you
Kleba.
pronounce
I think
it.
it's Kleba. I would love to have him as our backup big. He would be perfect, bro. He could play the 4 or the 5. He could shoot. He's a very underrated defender, very smart player. We'd have to get involved. We'd have to trade Ariza, but like if Dallas was using Kleba and like Dorian Finney-Smith, like I would definitely try and flip Ariza for like a Kleba and a Dorian Finney-Smith, even if we like potentially had to trade down in the draft or something, because I love Kleber's game. And Dorian Finney-Smith I think is underrated. I think honestly it wouldn't be that much of a downgrade from Ariza, assuming Ariza regresses a little bit this year. Finney-Smith is underrated. Finney-Smith shot 37.6% from 3 last year. He's 6'7", decent wingspan, decent defender, can guard multiple positions. Like he's a guy that makes $4 million a year. Kleba makes about 8, and that would basically match the Ariza's salary. And maybe you use Finney-Smith as the backup 4. I think he has just enough size to maybe play the backup 4, and then you go out and you use the mid-level exception on a starting small forward replacement for Ariza. That's kind of a route that hasn't been discussed because like Kleba, it doesn't make sense for them to trade like Kleba and Finney-Smith for an Ariza. You know what I mean? But if they're like using Kleba to try and get like a legitimate player like a Zach LaVine, I would love to try and make that a 3-team trade because Kleba is a guy that I really, really want.
Yeah, I would guess they're probably trying to trade like Tim Hardaway and Dwight Powell and players like that, but they're not. That's not going to get you much without attaching an asset. I mean, maybe they could find. I mean, I hope for their sake they don't go after Westbrook, but that would be a horrible fit too. But
actually, I hope they do because I don't want the house to be good. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
Westbrook can blow up another Western Conference playoff team to help us out, like undercover agent, man. But yeah, Kleba's a guy I would love. Like, he's just not really gettable. Like, let me look up his stats from this past year. Let's see. Hold on.
Destrom is obsessed with Isaac Bonga for some reason.
He's kind of intriguing, but
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't.
Kleba shot.
I keep bringing him up like every 5 seconds.
Yeah, every 5 seconds. Kleba shot 37% from 3. He was at 40 for a good portion of the season. Shot 60% inside the arc, but 2/3 of his shots came from the 3-point line. His true shooting percentage last year was 60.5%. He's a smart defender per 36. He averaged 13 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, a block and a half. So his rebounding is kind of questionable, but like Luka helped clean up a lot of boards, and Porzingis is a good rebounder that he played next to a lot. So, maybe he's a guy that rebounds a little better than his numbers suggest, and boxing out is definitely underrated even if you don't get the rebound. So, and he's the type of player that I feel like would be good boxing out, just an overall smart, savvy player. Like, so I would definitely be interested in a guy like that. But bro, like there's so many European players, at least a couple, that I'm really intrigued by going into this offseason that were easily gettable either in the draft or they were undrafted. You know what I mean? Like, Daniel Tice was undrafted. He would be a really good backup center for us. Kleba, I think, was undrafted. He would be a really good backup big for us. Bjelica was taken early in the second round. We had the pick right before Bjelica got drafted. We took Armand Johnson. Remember that? Remember Armand Johnson?
That wasn't Olshey, though, just to be fair.
No, yeah, it wasn't. You know what I mean? But, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like we never, like, find these, like, underrated European guys that end up being, like, a Kleba or a Bjelica or a Tice. You know what I mean? I would love to, like... I'd love to get better at that. Like, that's something I think Olshey needs to get better at.
All right, before I go to the next draft rumor, or rumor in general, let me just say something for everyone listening right now. Please, over the next week, keep in mind, nothing you are hearing right now is supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be to get teams to think you're drafting someone else and all that kind of other stuff. So if you see ESPN saying that, oh, the Blazers love RJ Hampton, they're going to draft him at 16 or whatever. Like, we could end up drafting RJ Hampton. I'm not saying we couldn't, but like, there's no way Olshey is telling people, unless it's a smokescreen, that he's in love with RJ Hampton right now and that he's going to take him, right? He's trying to get people to think he likes RJ Hampton so they don't take who he really likes to get. And all these interviews and stuff, who we interview, like none of that stuff matters. Like you have several players like Sadiq Bey and I think Jalen Smith wouldn't even admit who has interviewed them so far. Like teams are trying to tell these guys to not say anything, and Olshey keeps it tight to the vest, man. So you're not going to hear a bunch of trade rumors or like draft rumors from the Blazers. You might hear some from the agents or someone that could slip up outside of the Blazers, but I just wouldn't believe much you're hearing about interviews and stuff like that, or what teams love certain players right now.
Yeah. A lot of gamesmanship.
Mm-hmm. It was so looks like the Pacers are definitely going to be trading Oladipo this summer. I don't know how you can keep him on the team after what happened today.
I think let me talk about Indiana for a second. I think the move for Indiana is to trade Miles Turner and Doug McDermott for Drew Holiday. I think that trade makes a ton of sense for both teams. Miles Turner would be a great fit in New Orleans because he can shoot the three and protect the rim, so it would allow Zion to like play the four and play inside, if that makes sense. Like Miles Turner is still pretty young, so he would fit kind of their timeline. He would be a great fit, and you'd open up the backcourt. Holiday and Lonzo Ball aren't really like ideal fits next to each other. Neither are the best shooters. And you could. Drew Holiday could play with his two brothers in Indiana, and he could kind of be their Oladipo replacement. What's up? He's not on his hand's on the camera, but Drew Holiday could play with his brothers, would be the Oladipo replacement, and then I don't know what they could get for Oladipo, but Drew Holiday would be the guard replacement for Oladipo. I think that trade makes a ton of sense, and then you go and try and maybe go to Miami and try and get like Olynyk and something else, and Olynyk can kind of be you could pair him with Sabonis in the front court, get a Gonzaga big front court or something like that. I think that's kind of what Indiana should do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. So Oladipo's obviously been tied to several teams. Miles Turner is actually tied to the Boston Celtics today.
Wouldn't they have to trade Smart for him?
Yeah, either Smart or, I mean, I guess they could trade Hayward and get multiple pieces.
Hayward would be a good person for Indiana to maybe look at.
Yeah, so they get Hayward and then Turner, and maybe there's a third team involved or something, like you mentioned, Olynyk or maybe JJ Redick, or I don't know, just like someone else.
Turner, and McDermott for Hayward. McDermott could like replace some of Hayward's wing minutes, but come off the bench. I think that makes sense.
And someone is asking us, speaking of Gordon Hayward, so someone is asking us about the Blazers rumors with Gordon Hayward. He makes too much money, so it's not going to happen, and I don't see him opting out, even though he's threatening to do so.
Yeah, no. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. There's some good fits for Miles Turner. The other one that I've heard is Golden State, which I hope doesn't happen because he'd be a perfect fit in Golden State as well. Just a floor spacing rim protector like that extra floor spacing. Their shooting is a struggle with Draymond out there playing the four, but if they got a floor spacing rim protecting five, like Miles Turner is very valuable, I think, on the trade market, because there's not a lot of young bigs in this league that are on a decent contract that can hit threes at a high volume as well as protect the rim as well as he does. And those types of players fit in great on pretty much any team. So, like, he'd be a great fit in Boston. He'd be a great fit in New Orleans. He'd be a great fit in Golden State. So I think Miles Turner is definitely a guy to watch. I feel like he could fetch a bit back. And the only reason Indiana's looking to trade him is because he doesn't really coexist with Sabonis because they're both fives.
Yeah, I think Turner's another one of those guys where the idea of him is better than what he's shown on the court.
He ain't
Defensively,
like
he's
Aaron
been
Gordon in
decent.
that regard,
Yeah,
though.
no, yeah, he's better than that, but he hasn't really put up a lot of productivity to match his what he should be at this level so far. I know he's dealt with a lot of nagging injuries and stuff, nothing serious, but like he seems to be always bothered by something. But yeah, it's not a good fit with Sabonis. And Pacers are in a weird situation because they could probably work out some sort of deal for the second pick if they were trading with the Warriors and taking on Wiggins'
Mm-hmm.
contract. But like they still have Brogdon and Sabonis and TJ Warren. Like they're not like going into full rebuild most likely. So like that's why a Gordon Hayward trade makes more sense than getting a high draft pick or something.
Yeah, I like Turner though, man. Like the past, he struggled a little bit from the 3 point line last year. Shot 34.4%, but the year before shot 38.8. The year before shot 35.7. He's a career 35.7% 3 point shooter. Had led the league in blocks per game. In 2018-2019, getting 2.7 blocks per game in 28.6 minutes. Last year got 2.1 blocks per game. Very solid rim protector. Obviously, you can't tell a lot based off blocks, but from what I've seen, he's not like a Hassan Whiteside where he just chases everything. Yeah, and he's still only 24 years old. So I think he'll be a guy that will fetch a decent return. You know, if they could get a Hayward and have their small forward, power forward, center be like Gordon Hayward, T.J. Warren, Domantas Sabonis, that's pretty intriguing. They would need to get something good back for Oladipo in the backcourt, but maybe you can get Hayward back to kind of how he was playing in his Utah Jazz days where he was an all-star. And, you know, Sabonis was an all-star last year, and he continues to develop. You have something interesting there. What other rumors you got?
So you probably saw this one, but the Lakers are mulling trading for DeMar DeRozan, which I think would
I
be.
hope that happens, bro.
I know, me too.
Please. He'd
Like
be a horrible fit.
I think DeRozan's still okay, but that would be one of the worst possible teams he could go to
Mm-hmm.
because LeBron and AD. I mean, AD can shoot a little bit. LeBron can shoot okay, but like those are the type of guys you want to surround DeRozan with, and he's not a good third option. He's not a great first option either.
Yeah, he
I
can't
don't
play
know.
off
It's
the
just
ball.
kind of weird. Yeah,
Yeah, he can't
it's just
shoot. He needs
horrible
the ball
fit.
in his hands. He's not a good defender. DeRozan doesn't fit on really any team because he's one of those players that needs the ball in his hands but isn't good enough to justify having the ball in his hands. You know what I mean? So like, bro, it would be a downgrade. Like Danny Green wasn't good in the playoffs last year. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was like inconsistent, but trading those two guys for like a DeMar DeRozan doesn't make him any better. Because the fit is just terrible there. And like I said earlier in the stream, like people underrate fit. They just look at it like, oh, that's a talent upgrade. Wow, they really went out and got DeMar DeRozan. But he's a horrible fit next to AD and LeBron. Terrible. So I honestly hope that happens. I honestly hope they shell out the few like decent role players they have and consolidate like they already have bad depth to begin with. I hope they consolidate it even more for a guy who doesn't fit and is aging. And, you know, maybe LeBron ages and takes a little bit of a step back, you know what I mean? And AD's pretty injury prone, you know, you never know what could happen with him. He might not be able to finish the season next year with this quick turnaround. Like, I don't know, man. The Lakers, I don't think it will end up being like a dynasty or anything of that sort, especially if they go out and make this DeRozan move. I hope that happens because I feel like that would be a big mistake and a move that they
Yep.
wouldn't need to make.
Yeah, I feel like I was saying that a lot of teams today with like Russell Westbrook and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the rumor was Danny Green and Kuzma.
The
But
one team, the one playoff team that DeRozan might make sense for in the West might be Denver because they have a lot of shooting and he
yeah,
could play like he can't play off the ball for like AD and LeBron because he'd have to be used as like a floor spacer with the way they play, you know? A lot of LeBron AD pick and roll, like DeRozan's going to be sitting on the 3 point arc and he can't shoot threes at all. Whereas like Denver, you give the ball to Jokic, you have so much player movement that like DeRozan would be better off the ball and could playmake, and he has like a bunch of shooters around him, so you know his playmaking and off ball play would potentially function decently in like a situation like Denver, but every other playoff team in the West, he wouldn't be a good fit.
yeah, you definitely need to put him next to a shooter. Like I don't know if he fits overall with Indiana, but like him and a Brogdon would be okay. Um, like him and well, I guess Middleton wouldn't be good because neither of them are a point guard. But I was just trying to think of like guards that would be okay
Yeah,
with
it's
him.
really hard to fit DeRozan in with like a winning team. So what else you got?
Um, I heard that the Bulls would take LaMelo at 4 if he falls there, so
Yeah,
he's not slipping past 4. I'm pretty sure he's going to go number 1, and it's going to be a horrible decision by Minnesota. And I'm
Minnesota
going to
needs
love
to
every
trade
minute
that
of it
pick.
because
Minnesota
yeah.
needs to trade that pick, bro.
So
Um,
I did hear that Minnesota likes uh Tyrese Halliburton, which would be a good fit for them.
yeah,
And that they that's one of the reasons they want to trade down is they could get another asset and get Halliburton, and I think that would be a good
Detroit at 7.
that that would be good for them. But I just don't.
Chicago at 4 or Detroit at 7 would be spots to trade down to and try and pick up extra assets. Because I think Halliburton would be there at 7, but would definitely be able to get him there at 4.
Yeah, like if the rumor was true from last week that we talked about Wendell Carter Jr. not being high on the Bulls, and you could get him and like number 4 for number 1, basically.
Yeah,
Uh,
number 1, and they have the 17th pick as well, right? Minnesota does. Number 1 and number
Minnesota.
17 for number 4 and Wendell Carter Jr. would be a solid trade for both teams if the Bulls don't want Wendell Carter.
And then Bulls get LaMelo Ball, and then the Timberwolves can take Halliburton if they're that high on him.
And Wendell Carter is your backup
And I
big.
think that would work out well for both teams.
They would maybe want to flip Wendell Carter for something else, but like that's just a good move in terms of asset. You're lagging. I'm not lagging. You're lagging for once.
I think we're
But you're
lagging.
back. No, I'm not lagging. You're lagging.
We're back.
I've been here the whole time.
Oh,
You're the one
just
lagging. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
You're lagging, bro. Because like yeah, normally that doesn't happen.
This time it was just me.
Yeah, you started getting all robot-y. But like maybe they would need to flip Wendell Carter because he couldn't play next to Cat, but that would just be good in terms of like the assets, getting back assets for the number 1 pick to be able to get like a good young prospect big in number 4. That would be a solid move. What else you got?
Well, speaking of Drew Holiday, the Celtics are also interested in him. I just don't know how they're going to get all these players.
They don't need Drew Holiday.
Yeah. If they did trade Smart, though, if they traded Smart and Hayward and ended up with Miles Turner and Drew Holiday, that wouldn't be a bad trade-off. I think the contracts would come pretty close to working out.
Yeah, I think they need to keep their switchability there, though, on the wings. You either need to have Jaylen Brown at the 2 and Jason Tatum at the 3, or like get another wing like that has defensive versatility to play next to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You don't need to like downgrade your size and play like Kemba with Drew Holiday with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum at the 3 and 4. I just don't think that's the most optimal thing. So I don't think Drew Holiday makes a ton of sense for them.
Yeah, I agree. But that was pretty much all I had for today. Other than I put Westbrook in brave capital letters on my piece of paper. We obviously talked about him already.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a random question I just thought of. Do you think there is any chance that I don't think there is, but do you think there's any chance that Otto Porter Jr. gets bought out during this offseason? Like maybe he gets traded and then bought out, or
I would be surprised if he did, just because. I mean, I guess there's a chance if he was willing to accept less money, but.
Because I think he'd get paid on the free agent market and could maybe like make that money back.
Yeah, say like I'll accept the buyout for $20 million or something.
Yeah.
And then sign for the MLE somewhere. I mean, that would be awesome for us,
bro. Because I haven't even thought about that. Like, I mean, I don't think that'll happen. It's very unlikely. Normally, that type of stuff doesn't happen. But like, if Chicago's not gonna win next year and they could save money, and he's not really a trade asset at this point, like. with his contract and it's expiring. Maybe, bro, because like I would love to have him as our starting four next to Ariza and have defensive versatility there. And you could bring Zach Collins off the bench at the 4 or 5, and then you use the trade player exception. Like I would love something like Dame, CJ, Ariza, Otto Porter Jr. with the MLE, Nurkic. That's our starting 5, and then off the bench you have CJ like staggered with Dame, so CJ's the backup point guard. You have Trent at the 2, Hood at the 3, Bielitsa at the 4. We use our trade player exception to get him and like maybe our first round pick or future seconds or whatever. And then Zach Collins is the backup 5. I think that lineup would be very, very good.
You forgot Aaron Gordon. Where does he fit in?
No, I want guys that can defend and shoot. That's what Otto Porter Jr. could do.
I know.
But
I think he's better at the 4 too. So that would be, God, that would be amazing. Like if somehow that worked out. I don't see them buying him out until later in the season, if at all. But
bro,
because the problem with buying someone out is their contract is stuck on your books that entire season.
Yeah,
and then
but like they're probably not going to trade him, and they'd probably trade him they'd probably buy him out after the trade deadline anyway, and they're probably not going to be able to trade him anyways. So, what were you going to say?
I'm gonna look something up real quick. Hold on.
But like. The pipe dream would be them buying him out. We trade CJ for Middleton, and we use the MLE on Otto Porter Jr., and then we like use the traded player exception on Bielitsa, and we have Dame, Middleton, Ariza, Otto Porter Jr., Nurkic is our starting 5, and then a bench of Trent, Hood, Bielitsa, Collins. That's the ultimate pipe dream right there.
All right, so.
Because Middleton, Ariza, Porter Jr. at 2 through 4, all switchable, that all can shoot the 3 well. Like, that would be phenomenal.
The only way I could see this happening is if, for some reason, the Bulls had the chance to sign someone. Anthony Davis would be awesome. But no, not Anthony Davis. But, like, the problem is there's not good enough free agents that I can think of this offseason. But if they had the chance to sign someone and if they stretched him, it would clear out his contract like 7 years or whatever, and then you're only paying him $4 million a year for the next 7 instead of But
or they trading for Westbrook. And if if the Rockets didn't want Otto Porter Jr.'s contract back, or didn't want any contracts back.
But they wouldn't trade for him then.
No, I mean like the Bulls trading for Westbrook and wanted like cap space. Needed like salary cleared up because they've been tied to Westbrook. And maybe Houston didn't want Otto Porter Jr.'s contract back. Maybe they'd rather have like free agent money to splash around instead. And the Bulls waived and stretched Otto Porter Jr. to create the money to be able to absorb West. Aren't they? How much below the cap is Boston?
Boston?
Or is Chicago? What the hell?
Well, they're at 77 without Otto Porter Jr., and that doesn't include draft picks or Chris Dunn, Denzel Valentine, and Shaquille Harrison. Here, they could just let those 3 go. So
then you're at like 80 million, so 81 million. So then you're like 28 million under the cap. Maybe they find a team to take on Thaddeus Young, or maybe like Houston is willing to take back like a contract in that range to preserve, to get under the tax or maybe clear up cap space. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
The problem is Otto Porter Jr. is a perfect fit next to Harden too, so I don't see why they wouldn't want to just trade Otto Porter straight up for. If I was Houston, I would trade Westbrook straight up for Otto Porter.
Yeah,
I know that sounds crazy,
but maybe they'd rather have like 27 million to use. I don't know if they'd be able to get below the cap, but like maybe they'd rather have that 27 million to split amongst like a Jay Crowder and someone else, you know what I mean, instead of using it on Otto Porter Jr. Because let me look at Houston's payroll, because they're at 130 million right now. If they just got rid of Westbrook, they would be at 90 mil, and would have about 19 million to spend. Maybe they'd rather have that to go get like make a splashier move than having Otto Porter Jr. It's unlikely, but I don't know. Maybe some weird things could happen, and Otto Porter Jr. could be available because that's somebody I'd love to have on this team. And the only way we'd be able to get him is if he somehow got bought out, which isn't likely. But
it'd be an awesome post All-Star break pickup.
Yeah, I just love to have him to start the season, man, because he's switchable with Ariza and can shoot. That's the type of guy I want as the 4. And he's like an underrated passer. I feel like the ball movement would be good. Could potentially be good if we were coached right.
Alex, well, if that trade doesn't work.
All right, so we will.
This makes too much money.
Next week, we plan on streaming Monday, Tuesday night, right? Monday, Tuesday night, because the draft is Wednesday, so we'll ramp up our coverage to that. And then Thursday night, we'll have our normal stream, and then we'll have our free agency stream on Friday. So every day next week, there should be a stream. So we're going to log off here because we're wrapped up with rumors. If y'all want to come play Among Us with us, join our Discord. I'll put the link in the chat if you actually want to play. Yes, I don't understand the people in that Discord that are in that Discord but never play with us and never try and play with us. Why are they in the Discord to begin with? It's literally just to play Among Us. Where's Smog? I don't see Smog.
He's Greg Martin.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Oh. Anyway, I had no idea what his name was. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna have you covered next week, and hopefully the website launched by then. Got content that we need to basically the only thing we're waiting on for the website to launch is to get enough written content to be able to have certain sections of the website filled enough to be able to launch it. So should be able to get that off the ground this weekend, most likely. So we're gonna be we got more draft profiles coming and whatnot. So things are gonna be hectic the next week and a half. And then we have training camp starting 3 weeks from now. So it's gonna be hectic until training camp, and then training camp, the first week of training camp, it is actually going to be the most relaxed things have been in the past month. Because we've been ramping up draft profiles, and that's a lot of work, and preparing the draft stream and all that, and the website, getting that launched. So training camp will actually be the most relaxed it is for a week, and then we'll start having post-game streams. The plan is to do our post-game streams for the preseason over here on this channel. To maybe just get more people to subscribe to this channel, and we'll tease that. Maybe we could depend on if there's only 3 preseason games, we might do it over on Blazers Uprise. I don't know. I just kind of want to try and get more people subscribed to this second channel. We'll have more when the time comes. So we're gonna be busy. Just stay tuned. If you want just consistent updates, join our we have a Discord for our channel as well. If you're not in that, we announce stuff in there. I will post a link for that Discord, which is the link that I'm posting now. Also, follow us on Twitter at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel, at Tori Jones YT for me. That's how you can stay up to date.
The T-Bud just said he might play if we don't have 10.
Oh, yeah. Hop in there, bro. Hell yeah. So anyway, we're logging off. If you want to come game with us, if you want to come play Among Us with us, since, I didn't get the PS5, so... we're still on the Among Us train. If you want to come, hang out with us right now, feel free to do so. Just hop in voice chat in the Discord. If not, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good weekend ahead. Things are going to ramp up and be crazy, and I'm looking forward to it. So until next time, hope you guys have a good rest of your night. As always, peace out.